Producing nursery plants in the field for garden centers or landscape contractors may take 2 to 7 years from the date of propagation. Determining the most efficient field design, crop rotation schedule, soil management, transplanting, fertilization, irrigation, pruning, pest control, winter and summer protection, and harvesting are important to the economic success of a field nursery operation. The main goal for a nursery business is to profitably produce quality plants. I'm Dr. DeBusk, and this video will discuss the requirements to grow field-grown crops. Plant spacing in the field should make efficient use of the land and facilitate traffic flow and ease of access. The market size of the plant and the width of equipment used to plant, maintain, and harvest determines the distance between the rows. The rotation of field-grown nursery crops require more planting than rotations for farm crops because nursery crops require more than one growing season to reach marketable size. If a nursery manager wishes to produce an annual supply of standard deciduous trees, a crop must be planted each year so that the trees will be ready for marketing in 7 years and every year thereafter. It is typical to plant 5% or more trees than are planned to be sold annually to compensate for losses in the field from numerous causes. While there is little precedent to follow, nurseries producing balled and burlapped crops may be able to slow the degradation of their soil by having the land in sod or green manure crops 30 to 40% of the time. Rotations include having nursery crops, then green manure, and winter cover crops or small grain crops, then sod. If grass sod is grown in the aisles designated for the use of equipment, it may be possible to keep the field in production for longer periods of time with consecutive nursery crops. After a crop has been harvested, the green sod aisle will be plowed and planted, and the old crop row would become the aisle planted to sod. The type, amount, and timing of fertilizer applications vary greatly with soil type, precipitation, temperature, and crop requirements. It is imperative that the nursery manager establishes a working relationship with a reliable, independent soil testing laboratory to get regular testing done. Most field production nurseries broadcast inorganic granular fertilizers using hopper, drop, or rotary type spreaders. However, in-row banded fertilizer treatments and fertilizer injection systems for container production are becoming more popular because of the increasing cost of fertilizer and the advantage of directing root growth. When banded placement is utilized, application rates should be based on the area where the fertilizer is applied rather than the area of the total field. Banding fertilizer is more practical during the first 2 years of growth for many nursery crops. The objective for field-grown crops is to provide optimum conditions for rapid, vigorous growth by allowing sufficient space between plants, by providing adequate water and nutrition, and by preventing excessive competition from pests and weeds. The timing is usually tied to the availability of labor and the likelihood that there will be ample soil moisture for the liners to become established before rapid shoot growth begins. If the transplants survive the first summer with a good root system, then the chances of the plant living to saleable size are excellent. Field irrigation, if location permits, should be considered to enhance growth and survival percentage. Most nursery transplanting machines are designed to be pulled by a tractor to plant one or more rows at a time. Bare root liners should be pruned to remove girdling roots and puddled furrows filled with water or dipped in a slurry before they are planted. When initially planting liners, root pruning is important to do to keep the roots from circling later on. Some liner containers have holes in them which allow for air pruning, keeping the roots from circling while allowing ample root growth. Certain species benefit from taproot pruning in the seedling to allow the root to produce a flare of roots. Trickle irrigation appears to be the system of the future for field production. There are many advantages. It is less expensive to install, it is a durable product that does not require constant movement, and it requires less water than an overhead system. Crops can also be fertilized through a trickle system by injecting fertilizer into the main line near the pump. The injection can be done either with a positive pressure injector or by using a bypass method. The root systems of most smaller field-grown trees and shrub crops may spread 3 to 9 feet from the base of the plant. Because most bare root or soil balls are dug from 12 to 24 inches in diameter, a considerable portion of the root will be lost when the plant is dug. Root pruning, as practiced in nurseries, is the cutting off of the distal parts of the roots to stimulate lateral root formation closer to the main stem of the plant. It is not practical to individually root prune each plant in a nursery row. Therefore, growers will disc or plow in the aisle row close to the plants. Root pruning is often done during the second year for rapidly growing shrubs, every 3 to 4 years for trees, and sometimes a few months before the crop is to be dug. Another method for restricting root growth is a root control bag that is placed in the transplant hole and backfilled with the field soil when planting the liner. There are advantages and disadvantages in using the root control bag. The advantages include less time and labor in digging, a high proportion of roots retained in the ball, a more stable soil ball in sandy soils, and a longer post-harvest life on the retail lots without rewrapping. The cost involved is one disadvantage. But the major disadvantage is that the bag must be removed before transplanting. Some landscape architects are specifying that only container-grown trees be used as a result of tree losses that occur when landscape contractors fail to remove the root bag from transplanting. Based on research, the researchers at UF found that the amount of small diameter roots was increased in response to root pruning. Adding fabric to the bottom of the planting hole in conjunction with pruning increased root density even more. A general rule is to plant the trees 3 feet apart for each inch of anticipated trunk diameter. For example, trees to be sold at a 2-inch diameter should be planted 6 feet apart in rows with about a 10-foot row spacing, depending on harvesting equipment. Trees to be harvested as bare rootstock are normally planted close together with less space between the row. Some growers cut back established tree liners to 2 inches from the ground at the beginning of the next growing season in order to force a straight trunk from vigorous spring sprout growth. This is useful street reproduction practice on species such as oak, where it is difficult to obtain a straight trunk. Grafted or budded cultivars with stems that have a tendency to bend over from excessive top growth are tied to individual stakes to protect the bud sprout, to prevent wind breakage, and to ensure straight trunks. Stakes should be confined to the lower portion of the stem, allowing the upper portion to sway in the wind. The stakes are driven into the ground on the prevailing wind side of the small trees so that the wind will not cause the tree to rub against the stake and damage the bark. The support should be removed as soon as the tree has developed sufficient caliper to support the crown. The supports are usually removed at the end of the second growing season. Some nurseries have found that they must reduce the size of the tree canopy rather than stake the tree to keep it upright. For some species, staking will result in a weak tree trunk that will not support the canopy after the stake is removed. The movement of the tree canopy and flexing of the trunk of unstaked trees tends to strengthen the tree trunk. Pruning is labor intensive. Winter pruning should include tying up crooked leaders, trimming very bent leaders back to upright buds, and shortening long side branches back to balance the tree canopy. A second pruning may follow to induce symmetry in the plants to produce a narrow pyramidal crown with a central leader. The lowest branches on 2-year trees can also be removed to about 12 to 18 inches above the ground. As the trees develop, all narrow angle branches and crowded side branches are removed, so those that are left are spaced about 12 to 18 inches apart. Branches selected for permanent scaffolds must have wide angles of attachment with the trunk for greatest strength. The culture of deciduous flowering trees, cherry, crabapple, hawthorn, dogwood, redbud, magnolia, etc., is similar to that of deciduous shade trees. Liners are field planted as 1 or 2 year seedlings, cuttings, or grafts. They are usually grown to marketable sizes at a spacing of 18 inches in the row and dug bare root. Most upright types are pruned to a single leader, while spreading trees are allowed to develop as multi-stem specimens with several leaders. Branches within 3 to 4 feet out of the ground on marketable size plants are removed at a time that will allow wound healing before sale. Deciduous flowering trees are usually ready to market in 6 years or sooner. Deciduous shrubs are placed at 12 to 14 inches as 1 or 2 year old seedlings or cuttings. Many deciduous shrubs will produce much bushier growth with more canes and branching from the base if they are pruned several times during field culture. Plants used for hedging especially need to be well branched at the base. Shrub liners should be headed back about half their height during the first winter pruning. Transplants should be allowed to develop a root system before forcing vigorous shoot growth. Further dormant trimming of laterals during the second and third year will benefit the appearance of many shrub types. The roots are pruned either in the second or third year depending on plant type. Small to medium cultivars are usually ready to be harvested after 3 years in the field, while large growing cultivars are ready after 4 years. Most deciduous shrubs are dug bare root. Narrow-leaved evergreen shrubs that are straight as root cuttings, such as juniper, arbor vitae, yews, and cypress, are usually lined out in 2 or 3 foot spacings. Upright types may be pruned to maintain 1 leader, and laterals are often sheared several times to give dense symmetrical growth. Spreading types are pruned to produce a type shape and prevent spindly growth. Crops are root pruned in the second and fourth years for upright types and third year for spreading types, and are dug either balled and burlapped or balled and potted after 4 to 5 years in the field. Narrow-leaved evergreen trees such as pine, spruce, and fir are usually lined out at 2 to 3 foot spacings as 2 or 3-year-old seedlings or grafts. Many species make only one rapid flush of growth in late spring. The first pruning occurs when new growth or elongated shoot candles have almost reached their maximum length and the needles are still short. The tip of the candles, including the central leader, should be removed. Tip pruning is usually done until the plants reach 5 to 6 foot in height. Then fertilizer rates are reduced to prevent excessively long internodes and unreachable branches. In some areas, it may be necessary to protect fields where narrow-leaved evergreens are grown from winter winds that may be causing browning of foliage. Broadleaf evergreen shrubs, azalea, rhododendron, holly, boxwood, pieris, etc., are usually lined out at 18 to 24 inch in the row as 1 or 2-year-old cuttings depending on species. Many broadleaf evergreen shrubs develop a shallow, dense root system and benefit from moisture-retaining organic soils or mulching. These shrubs are grown in the same manner as narrow-leaved evergreen shrubs, except for the species that require an acid soil. Shrubs are pruned to encourage dense growth. If flowers are allowed to mature and set seed, vegetative growth will be reduced. Flowers should be removed so that vegetative growth will remain vigorous. Broad-leaved evergreen shrubs are balled and usually marketed after 4 to 5 years in the field. Deciduous trees and shrubs are usually dug when top growth slows and leaves drop, indicating the first signs of dormancy. If deciduous plants are dug before reaching this dormant stage, they may grow very poorly when replanted. Once the plants are dug, they may be trimmed, graded, and bunched in the field. More often, the plants are bundled and quickly removed to storage to prevent drying. And the trimming, grading, labeling, and packaging to fill orders is done when labor is available or when little outdoor work can be done. Generally, the larger sizes of deciduous types and all evergreen types of field-grown nursery stock are dug as balled and burlapped, balled and potted, or balled and bagged. Many people wrongly assume that all trees are now dug with mechanical diggers. It is often more efficient and desirable to dig large orders of small bare root trees or small quantities of balled and burlap plants by hand. Most large shade trees of 3-inch caliper and above are dug mechanically. Use of mechanical diggers increases the number of plants that can be dug in a day. Some growers use wire baskets with burlap lining to place the root balls in once the plants are dug. The wire baskets come in many sizes and can be tightened around the balls with hooks. There are, of course, many other types of containers available that can be used in conjunction with mechanical diggers, such as balled and bag system that was previously mentioned. Another method of handling field-grown nursery stock is balled and potted harvesting. Plants are dug with a ball of earth and then placed immediately into a container. This technique allows plants to be dug practically year-round. In conclusion, hopefully you learned how to care for field-grown crops, including specific categories of plants.